background in terms of American musics. How do you define what you do? What do you call it?
I basically had a New Orleans kind of training, and by that I mean that those musicians would study everything, the blues tradition, other traditions in the black music, and also classical music, European classical music. My father was my first teacher, and he had me working in terms of the gigs. We'd do 5 or 6 hours just playing all the music, you know, blues stuff, gospel stuff, jazz, and then at home I would practice the classical stuff as well. He had a black gospel choir that came to the house for 6 years, you know, and he was conducting the choir, you know, and I grew up with that. And so it's never been a question of deciding to do music. It was always music.
You're playing for a lot of pop audiences who deal in definitions of music. What do you do? How do you compensate to bring them past those definitions?
What I'm doing is I'm playing the music that I know. I show power in it. I believe in everything I'm doing. It's not diametric to my life. And when I think when you show a certain kind of power, you get respect. And so then it doesn't really matter what people's music backgrounds are, you know. Mm-hmm. I think when you tell a story you believe in, people get it, you know.
I want to talk about your voice, because there's so many people now doing voice work where they actually use the voice. They go to actual lessons to learn how to release the emotion that's suppressed in our voice. And what you're doing seems to me to be so much about that. I wonder what kind of release it is for you.
Singing is a kind of freedom, you know. It's a kind of, I've talked about the music that I do, and I've talked in terms of ecstasy, in terms of breaking out of a cage, you know. A lot of the music I deal with deals with concepts of isolation, of solitary confinement, and breaking out of that. For some people means putting your fist right through the wall, you know, and so that comes out in my work as being kind of violent in terms of the performance of it, you know, in terms of the expression, but that's how I've had to do things in my life anyway, and so it's a very logical way for me to work, but I don't want to be limited by anything physical, so I can go in other places beyond music, maybe, you know. This tradition is familiar to performers, for example, like Ornette Coleman or Albert Ayler, Cecil Taylor, who you know, took the instrument as literally as far as it would go, you know. Also performers like Roy Hart, a long time ago, coming more through the theatrical tradition. The Grotowski Theater, Artaud, all speaking about this. It's really like taking drugs, you know, in a way, and getting out there in your own place, you know, it's your own place. And with a voice, if I'm singing the way I'm supposed to be singing, it's like it's not me there anymore, you know. That's why people do things like training, like severe kind of training, when people do athletic training or whatever, because you go beyond, you go to another place, kind of the outer limits of the soul or whatever, you know. It's like out.
Sometimes it causes me to wonder, will there, will there, will there, will there.
What do you do as an artist to ensure that you can be that free? What do you need?
I need to be working all the time. I need to be doing what I'm doing. And that's been very hard for me to be working all the time. People have been afraid to book me. They've been afraid of work. The Plague Mass, I've only performed it about 9 times in America, 10 times in America. People are afraid of the work, they're afraid to book it.
Well, you are witness. Well, you are witness. And on that holy day, and on that bloody day, well, you are witness. And on that holy day, and on that bloody day, and on his dying bed, he asked me, tell all my friends, I was fighting too, but to all cowards and voyeurs, there are no more tickets to the funeral. There are no more tickets to the funeral.
Plague Mass was, quote, indicted for blasphemy in Italy. It was a very big scandal. Lo scandalo chiamato Galas, you know, pictures of the district commissioner, pictures of the building, and 40 pieces of national press. I'm on Christian Broadcast Network every week in different cities as a satanic influence on the culture. When they hear that kind of stuff, they, and the classical people are very interested in certain concepts of innocuous art, but they're not interested in where the music can really go. You know, they seem to be very tame. And, you know, all these musical categories have their limitations. You know, the rock and roll people will be afraid for another reason, or they'll say this shit is too weird, you know. So, however you look at it, you know. But my feeling is that I break through all those limitations by hustling to work with people and working with people who don't believe in those limitations either. That takes a long time.
This is my favorite time of the show, when I get to perform a ritual sacrifice while smoking. While I've been touring, I had the dissatisfaction to see this disgusting advertisement in the designer fashion magazine, a music magazine, Spin magazine. And what it shows is a son dying of AIDS, who's dead, presumably, his father crying, his mother crying, his sister crying. Right next to it, yes, we know, honey. Right next to it, it says, United Colors of Benetton. So, although I'm not getting paid to do this, I don't want to burn myself alive. What I would suggest is when you go to your local 7-Eleven store and you see this little piece of shit, you rip it out and you burn it.
I don't speak from another perspective, you know, the third-person party. I speak as a member of. So when I'm speaking as a member of a community of AIDS activists, of people dealing with the epidemic on a day-to-day basis. Most of my friends are HIV positive. Half of them now have AIDS. You know, I've seen all this stuff happen. So, yeah, there's a, you know, I can't speak in a comforting way when that's not what I'm feeling or seeing or next to, you know.
And then you can just set it down. If you like the store, you can step it out. If you don't, you can just leave.
We've talked so much about all of the things that your work involves, your AIDS work, your sense of transcendence in performance, music that has no boundaries. So I don't want to sound too pretentious, but what do you think the role of art is?
An artist can have a very inspirational effect, I imagine. I mean, one would hope to do that, but only really by remaining true and being honest and going on stage and telling the story about what you know. And if you tell that story correctly, and if you have something interesting to say, then I think that it can move people who are going the same direction you're in. You know, they talk about art converting people, or, you know, quote, preaching to the converted or preaching to the unconverted. I think that's all very naive as a sort of as a semantic enterprise. I think that as far as the work I'm doing, there's enough people I know who are going through a lot of this stuff that my friends are going through, and stuff that I experience in my own life, to be very gratified that someone is doing music that represents what's really going down. A lot of people are real tired of seeing the music industry as a sort of sedating force, as a medium that dilutes really heavy things, dilutes tragedy, dilutes even the kind of healthful sardonicism or whatever, and makes it into kind of, you know, it trivializes issues. And people are tired of pop musicians saying that they are presenting a very revolutionary agenda over pop music so that more people will be able to hear these profound words, when in point of fact, what you see is what you get.
Death defying, let us gather, praise the warrior and master. Hail our saints on Judgment Day.
That's the show for this week. Tune in same time next week for more On the Arts.
And throw